I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, the compassion and mercy of the grand predecessors, senior transmitters, lectures, temple masters, and everyone for giving me this opportunity today to talk about chapter 46 of the Tao Te Ching, the classic of the way and the virtue, chapter 46. Okay, this is a rather short. It's a less than average length chapter. It's on the shorter side. It's okay. The title, it's called Knowing Contentment, or Lasting Satisfaction, or Constant Contentment. Okay, good. So contentment is a very key concept in the Tao Te Ching also. Okay, so it's just, it only has not 9 phrases. I think it's 4 sentences. Okay, and so it's divided into 3 sections. The first section is the thesis, or the opening statement, if you will, and then the phrases 5 through 7 is the analysis, and then phrases 8 or 9 is the conclusion. Okay, so it's relatively short, but it has some pretty good ideas. Okay, so let's go. So let's go to the outline. Okay, so section 1, outline. Get my notes. Okay. Okay, section 1, outline. First sentence: when the world has the Tao, fast horses are retired to till the soil. Okay. Yeah, here's we need. Okay, the first phrase, when the world has the Tao, has many levels of meanings. Okay, so the basic meaning is that there are times when the Tao prevails, and I'll get to that, what that means, prevails in the world. And that means that there's a greater understanding of the Tao among people. The ruler uses the Tao in peaceful or good governance, and the people use the Tao in treating one another with kindness and respect. So the entire world is balanced and harmonious. Okay, so that's the very overall meaning. All right. Okay. Okay, then there's a more specific. Okay, when the world has the Tao. Okay, that when the Tao prevails in the world, good things will happen to the world and people's lives. So there is peace and harmony. Okay, so that's on a world scale or level. On an individual level, is having the Tao is to have a usable, practical understanding or working knowledge of the Tao in your daily life. Okay, all right. And additional understanding is okay. So this not only applies to the world level, between nations, etc., or societies or peoples, but also at the individual level as well. So we need to ask yourself whether the Tao is present in you also. Okay, how you can be. That is, how can you become more aware of the Tao so that you will not ignore the Tao, that you recognize the Tao and follow the Tao. Okay, so that's on that more individual level, and it's practical. It's practical. It's not just, I study the Tao and understand its principles, and then that's it, and do nothing. No, then that's not the practical side. Okay. So you have to practice it too. All right, and follow it. Okay. All right. So another understanding further is this: when we are with the Tao, right? What does it mean? Is that when you are more aware and follow the Tao, recognize the Tao, that means you're holding on to it. When we are on the path of the Tao, our entire life or world is balanced and harmonious. So that's similar to the world is harmonious. You can say the theory of world harmony. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's what this will leads to. Okay, okay, so another way of understanding is when the world has Tao. Okay, at the highest level, you can say, the highest or most broad level is when the entire world is in accord with Tao naturally and spontaneously. Okay, so that's similar to the Confucian aspiration of an ideal state, the world of great harmony. Okay, so that's the very, very high level. Okay, now, so when the meaning of this is, at the very, very highest level, then the world is at peace. You can say that's the world of great harmony. Okay, and then this follows. The fast horses are retired to the. Okay, we have to. I have to qualify what that means. Fast horses, but also there are lower levels. Okay, besides this. Okay, it applies to the individual level, right? At the individual level. Okay, so just understand that. So it's not just for the the worldly level, at the world stage, but also at the individual level. Okay, individual level. All right. Okay. Now let's go to the second phrase. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fast horse. I mean, literally, it means a fine horse or a galloping horse. Okay, or to go down a horseback or right. But the connotation means that it's a fast horse, a very, horse that can, run very fast, gallop very, and usually they use these fast horses in the military, for scouting duties, as scouts, setting, going for, to prepare for battle, okay, or to, use for reconnaissance, etc. So that's what this 走马. It doesn't just mean fast horses as in racing, racing horses, as in the Kentucky Derby and stuff like that. Okay, not that. It's more practical use in the sense that they use fast horses for scouting purposes for the military or in times of war, and then they use strong horses to haul, military supplies, arms, food, stuff like that. So that's what this means. So that's in this context. So fast horses are retired to till the soil. It doesn't mean race horses. It just means that horses that are used for warfare, in this case for scouting purposes, are no longer required, and so they till the soil. Now, the till the soil. Okay, here that's this. Okay, actually, this word "fen," I mean, yeah, it actually means manure, manure. Okay, horse manure. Well, in this case, horse manure, but it means droppings. But in this context, it means that the horses, the fast horses that are normally used, for warfare, for scouting purposes or reconnaissance purposes in warfare, when the world is peaceful, right? When the world is peaceful, harmonious, there's no need for war. So there's no need for using these fast horses, right? For warfare purposes. So instead, they are retired and used to, their manure is used in the fields, for for farming purposes. So that means it's being applied for peaceful purposes. Okay, so the basic meaning is, in times of war, fast horses are drafted for scouting duties. Okay, but in times of peace, they are retired to be used in farms instead. All right. So in times of peace, the speedy horses are used to plow the fields, to till the soil, for fertilizing the soil, with their manure, okay, for planting crops, to work in the farms, okay. In times of peace, the speedy horses that would normally be used in war are put into peaceful, productive use of their abilities. Now, okay, so on the on the person, now this is on a you say world scale, okay, national scale, okay, but then on an individual or personal level. So when the Tao prevails in your life, that means when you hold on to the Tao, you follow the Tao, you practice the Tao, in everyday life, okay, then there is peace and harmony in your life, okay. So then what about the horses? The horses are the metaphors for your thoughts and state of mind. There's an expression that a lot of the Buddhists like to use, or sages like to use. They say, our minds are racing like crazy horses. Not crazy, wild horses. I think they say 野马, right? Wild horses. That's our thoughts. Our minds, are constantly stirred, right? On a Friday class, we say, in the Heart Sutra, right? When we say our minds are, you can say, perturbed or stirred up, okay? That's when, 起心动念, that's, when the thoughts arise. So that's the wild horses, that the thoughts are like the wild horses within ourselves that constantly, rise up. We have one thought after the other. One thought's not enough. Two thoughts, three thoughts, four thoughts. Just keep going. Okay, so that's the metaphor. So the horses are like our thoughts and state of mind. Okay, so what you should ask yourself is, how is your productivity? What are we doing? What making use of our thoughts or our minds? What are we able to create? What are we able to work on? What are we able to accomplish? These are analogous to fast horses working in the field. So instead of just having thoughts, wild thoughts, going back and forth, up and down, whatever, maybe we should control it and see, hey, let's put thoughts to good use. Okay, so that's on the individual level. Okay, so that's if we have the Tao, because that means we can be the master, if you will, right, of our thoughts or of our senses, etc., right? The five skandhas, right? Okay, the fifth skandha is the consciousness, right? Okay, that's where the thoughts really, how can I say, are really buried in there. Okay, all right, okay, are really have really taken root. So you want to be able, when we have the Tao within us, when the Tao prevails, right, in us, okay, then we can control, you can say discipline, control our thoughts and not let the thoughts go wild and turn to something worse, like desires, which we will look at, later on this chapter. Okay, all right, and thought, desires, greed, etc. Okay, all right. So that's the key. All right. So the deeper understanding is at the national level or the world level. This is an equivalent, a very pretty good equivalent to beating swords and plowshares. That's that's actually a biblical quote. Okay, it's in the Old Testament. It's first found in Isaiah. Okay, all right. So let's look at okay, all right, at the world level. So when the world has the Tao, that is when the great Tao prevails in the world, it is just the same as for humans as in the world of great harmony. Okay, so in times of peace, that is when the world has Tao. Weapons are no longer needed. They can be turned into tools for farming, for the productive use of resources. Okay, so all right. Now on the individual level or internal level, when you are with the Tao, or when the Tao prevails, or when the world has the Tao in you, okay, your mind, that's the horses, the fast horses, will be proper, right? That means you'll not be going wild. You will not have crazy thoughts, delusional thoughts, etc., okay? Okay, and you will not be distracted and not have delusional thoughts. so that you will be able to turn your thoughts for peaceful and productive uses. Okay, so that's on the internal and individual level. Okay, so when the world has the Tao, means when everything is in accord with the true principles, the principles of Tao, the principles of nature. Things that are used in war can be reshaped into tools for peaceful and productive uses. And that would mean that civilization flourishes, humanity thrives. That's at the world level, human level. And at the individual level, your life and mind are harmonious and peaceful. Okay, so there are two parts. Okay, so there's the external, is when the Tao prevails in the world. That is when the world has the Tao, the entire world, the kingdom, and our life are balanced and peaceful, harmonious and prosperous. So the Tao prevails in the world when people hold on to, follow, and practice the Tao. Okay, so that's all right. Now, then the internal level is your state of mind. That's the fast horses. Okay, is peaceful and harmonious, just like turning the fast horses into peaceful and productive uses of their abilities. Okay, all right. So that's the first sentence of section 1. Now, then the counterpart. Okay, then now Lao is talking about the opposite side, is when the world lacks the Tao, then war horses give birth on the battlefield. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So we should know what when the world lacks the Tao. It just means that when it's not that the Tao is not present. It just means that when people no longer follow the Tao, or either they ignore the Tao or do not understand the Tao, or so that's like the world has lacks the Tao or has no Tao. The Tao is still there. It's in the background. It's the people now. I'm talking from the people's perspective, right? It's that when people do not recognize the Tao, are not aware of the Tao, do not follow the Tao, etc., etc. Okay, that's when the world lacks the Tao. Then what happens? Well, negative consequence. War horses. Okay, so what's a war horse? That's this term. It's Rongma. It literally means army horse, military horse. So it's a military horse, okay? Military, okay? Now, what does that mean to give birth on the battlefield? Okay, now let's look at this word, jiao. Jiao literally means open space, outskirts, or the boony, the boonies, the boondocks, the outlying regions, the wasteland. Now, what does that mean? It means the outskirts means that in the ancient context, okay, outskirts means, far away from the kingdom, city, urban centers or civilization, in the hinterlands. So that represents the borders region between kingdoms. So that's where battles are usually fought, or take place at, at the hinterlands, the armies of, two kingdoms, they would march to these, to these borderland, or you can say wasteland, hinterlands, and then do battle. Okay, so that's what it means. So that's why it's the battlefield. Okay. Okay, so basic meaning is there are also times in the world when the Tao seems absent. It seems absent. Okay, it's not that the Tao is not present. The Tao is always there. Okay, it's just that we don't recognize it. You don't know it, understand it. So it does not mean that the Tao is not ever present. Rather, that humanity, people, is not aware of and not following the Tao. So therefore, the world lacks the Tao. Okay, so that's what Lao Tzu means by that phrase. Okay, so when people are no longer aware of the Tao, they are not in rhythm or in sync with the Tao, or not congruent, you can say. There's greater and widespread ignorance of the Tao among the people. So that the world lacks the Tao, the humanity, okay? All right. So, or humans may be aware of the Tao, but they choose to ignore it, abandon it, and not follow it for selfish reasons, etc. So that is when the world lacks the Tao. So there are two parts, two aspects, right? You can say one is when people are not aware, or ignorant, they're not aware, they don't see it, they don't understand it, etc. Then the other one is when people willfully, they may be aware, they may know that, oh yeah, there is something, the Tao, or something, true principles or whatever, but they willfully ignore it and abandon it, don't follow it, so, for whatever reasons, usually selfish reasons, but, all right, that's when, so when the world acts. So the Tao is always present, but we can't always see that due to our imperfect understanding of the Tao, or people do not have a workable understanding of the Tao, even though the Tao is always there and has not changed, right? Remember chapter 45, right? We talked about that, right? About, the heavenly, clarity, and that where, sorry, was that 45 or 44? Previous chapters, sorry, that we don't understand. We have imperfect understanding, right? That's chapter 45, right? The great perfection seems flawed, right? The great straightness seems bent, etc. Right? Or the great fullness seems empty. Just that we don't see it. We don't understand it properly. So we don't follow the Tao. It's not that the Tao is not there. So yeah, here it is. So the Tao is the great perfection, which seems flawed due to our imperfect understanding, or incomplete, or lack of understanding. That's the first phrase from chapter 45 last week, right? We can't always see its great fullness, its great straightness, its great skill, and great eloquence because of our imperfect understanding. We don't see the Tao, so that is when the world lacks the Tao. Either we don't see or we don't understand, right? Because it's imperfect. All right. So the second half of this phrase about war horses giving birth, on the battlefield is, there's the external aspect, is all that the horses are drafted in the war because into war because the world lacks that, right? People do not follow the Tao. There's no peace and harmony, so they're always fighting, for against each other for either power, wealth, etc., fortune. So it's not just animals that suffer, but humans also. So and what's that? It's that the lack of peace affects the state of human minds as well. That's our horses. That's the horses in our human minds. All right. So that's why our human minds, our thoughts, not just wild, fast horses. So but it becomes war horses. That means becomes aggressive, right? Belligerent. So that's our human minds also. So thus now pregnant mares have no. So the metaphor of this war horses giving birth in the battlefield is that, because now horses are all pressed into military service. All right. So they're no longer in the farms, right? Producing crops or helping produce crops, or harvest crops or whatever. They all are pressed in the battlefield. So therefore, even the pregnant, or the pregnant mares, the female horses, have no choice but end up giving birth on the battlefield. Yeah. So this is a mistake. Anyway, so this is a haunting and vivid image that captures the horrors of war that is a result of the world that lacks the Tao. We must never forget the horrors of war that result from the world. So, all right. So rulers lacking the Tao will end up fighting wars. That's the problem. All right. People lacking the Tao will treat one another with hatred. So one is on the, you can say, more national level, kingdom level, and the other one's the individual level. So like the world today, when the world lacks Tao, there are more and more conflicts. The divisive rhetoric that is tearing people apart, setting one group of people against another, increasing mutual hatred, distaste, and revulsion, all ready to explode. That's the danger, right? When the world has no Tao, or when the world lacks the Tao. At the individual level, internal level, the incorrect understanding of Tao will also lead to problems in our lives. So we ignore the Tao, or at our own peril. It means that, we better be careful. We have to understand the Tao. We have to have a proper understanding. Okay. So high level. When we lack the proper understanding of the Tao, our state of mind, becomes like war horses, will be in turmoil and conflict, like the war horses on a battlefield. Okay. So this is a warning to us today. When the world lacks the Tao, there will be chaos and discord. Okay. There is the same, that's at the national level or social society level or kingdom level. The individual level, it's the same as it's true, just as true. Okay. We would have more vexations, worries, and eventually, it could lead to desires, greed, which we'll get into the in the second section. Okay, so when the world lacks the Tao, on the external level, there will be conflict and suffering. On the individual internal level, our state of mind will be chaotic and in turmoil. So just like the war horses on the battlefield. Okay. Okay, so this is Lao Tzu's first two lines. Okay. And now there's another perspective, kind of similar, but not exactly the same. All right. So let's go to the point. Ooh, okay, here. Now this is from Zhuangzi. Okay. All right. He said the following. Okay. In this section. Okay. In the inner chapters. Okay. He said the following: when the world has the Tao, sages are able to accomplish their work. Okay, 天下有道，圣人成焉. He also said, that's the first line. The second line, he said, when the world lacks the Tao, the sages can only try to survive. Now, he said this, he was saying this as a story of Confucius. All right, so this is you guys can look it up in this section. Okay, sorry, in here. Okay, all right. What Zhuangzi meant is that, okay, now in the first line, this word, what the sages are able to accomplish, it just means to achieve. Okay, because when peace prevails in the world, okay, civilization thrives. Now, that's the environment, okay, where sages can best accomplish their purpose of spreading the teachings and strengthen everyone's understanding of the Tao. So it is not just civilization that flourishes in the form, the arts, music, sciences, technology, but also the teachings of the Tao. Now, think about that, okay? When Confucius was around, right? So this is what Zhuangzi was talking about. He was talking about Confucius. I mean, Zhuangzi's same situation too, but remember, Confucius was in the late autumn and spring period. Now, Zhuangzi was in the warring period stage, which is the later part, the period right before when what's his name? The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, was first self-proclaimed emperor, occupy all the warring states. Now, during Confucius's time, there were, I don't know, at least a dozen or more kingdoms. It was the Zhou dynasty. This is around 2,500, 600. Well, it was earlier than that, 2,000 maybe. Probably 2,700 years ago, 700 BCE to, I don't know, like 400 BCE. It's roughly 400 year period of the the spring and autumn and warring states period. And it's very chaotic because that's like the decline. The previous dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, splintered into these various, kingdoms. So they're all fighting against each other. So when Confucius was around, it was very difficult for Confucius to accomplish their work, because the world, those states do not have the Tao. Okay, so that's why this is Zhuangzi speaking about, Confucius's dilemma, or you can say, bad timing. Is that, during the spring and autumn warring states period, sages like Confucius couldn't accomplish their work, which is what Confucius, what the ideal, the ultimate ideal is, the world of harmony, 世界大同, right? So sages like Confucius can only survive. That is what? To just still continue to teach to the disciples, because they no longer can, how can I say, have the audience of the kings now, because all the kings, want to, conquer each other, right? So they ignore sages like Confucius. So at the next best thing that the sages can hope for is just to make sure that their teachings, their message, does not get lost. Okay, it's not lost in the history of time. In this, okay, rather they can teach to the disciples in the hopes that that message, that their principles, in this case, the Tao, will continue to survive after this chaotic period is over. And it has, right? Because now, what, 700 years ago, we're studying Confucius teachings, right? Or the Tao, et cetera, right? Okay, so that's what this means. So the meaning of the second line, okay, now, even though Sen, it could mean to give birth, okay, but it also means to live, okay, or to survive, because there's conflict and turmoil in the world. It lacks the proper environment for sages to achieve their purpose. So they can only try to survive. Thus, the teachings of Tao do not thrive in this setting. Okay, now this is also true in Buddhism too, by the way, okay? During Buddha's time, right, there was peace. There was pretty much peace throughout, the different kingdoms or throughout that region. So he was able to expand and, spread his teachings. But after the 28th patriarch, Bodhidharma, which is roughly 1,000, a little over 1,000 years after Buddha, okay, after Buddha, okay, he was the 28th patriarch, Bodhidharma, Dharma, okay. How come he didn't continue that lineage, patriarchal lineage of Buddhism in India? Instead, right, he looked east, saw the good aura, and went, back to China, and and then continued the lineage, with San Guang, which is the Chinese Buddhist monk, okay, to pick up his the patriarch title, the bow and the robe and the bow. Okay, now Bodhidharma, because he's also enlightened being, he understood, because he looked to the west, where he was in India, and he didn't see good aura. So instead he's turned east because he saw good, and history will prove him right, because after Bodhidharma left India, the Muslim invaders, which is coming in from present day, Afghanistan, Kashmir, invaded India and demolished, destroyed all the Buddhist monasteries in their, throughout that region of northern India. So therefore, that is not conducive. That is not a good environment for Buddhism to continue to thrive, right, under those circumstances. So that's why Bodhidharma left. And okay, all right. So that's that. Okay, so that's another perspective of when the world has the Tao and the world has no Tao. Okay, or lacks the Tao. Okay, now let's go to the second section. Okay, so Now he said, there's no crime greater than greed. Okay, 罪, yeah, 罪 means crime. Okay, you could say guilt, etc. Okay, but okay, 可欲. Okay, here. All right, so okay, so 欲 literally just means desire, literally longing, wish. Okay, but it also means greed. Okay, so lust, passion. Okay, to desire. Okay, it could be a verb. So 可欲 means things that provoke desires or greed, etc. Things which we want. Okay, so basic meaning at the kingdom level is when one state acts on its greed for resources, territory, etc., belonging to another state, it will lead to war. So greed is the greatest crime. Okay, that's at the kingdom level. Okay, now at the individual level, when someone is blinded by greed, he may break the law to fulfill his obsession. So greed can be seen as the source of crimes, the root of all evil. Right, in what was that, in old ancient, and in the Bible too, in the biblical, they say avarice is the root of evil. Okay, or greed is the root of evil. Okay, all right, so another understands crimes could be infractions. Now crimes has many degrees, right? So it could be just simple infractions, violations of norms, laws, or other people's wealth. Okay, so it has a full spectrum. Okay, all right, now the craving for things leads to greed. That's the first of the three poisons, right, of Buddhism, right? The three poisons, right? Greed, right? Rage or anger, and we say ignorance, either ignorance or delusion. Okay, so three poisons. All right. Now it's very interesting how this word yu, okay, or this desire, or okay, comes about. It's actually you could get a hint of its meaning or its connotation. All right. By analyzing its etymology. Okay, that's the study of words. Okay, all right. So here it is. Okay, so this word is actually composed of two words. We call them radicals in calligraphy. Okay, so the left radical is the word for valley. Okay, which connotes, right, abundance, sufficiency, surplus, wealth, etc. Right. So recall, right, the valley attain oneness, okay, oneness, and thus abundance. That's right, 故得一一赢. Okay, that's from the fifth phrase of chapter 39, attain oneness. Okay, the valley. Okay, so that's the valley. That's the left part of the word. Okay, now the right part, the right radical, is the word for deficiency, 欠. Okay, that means to lack, to owe, to be sufficient. That's what this word means. Okay, so the word for desire or greed or avarice is due to the deficiency or lack of the valley. That is the lack of abundant surplus of wealth. So that's a lot of very meaningful, right? So that's how the word desire means. You lack abundance. So that's, you have desire. Or you lack, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but at the conclusion, there's another word. You lack something, and that's how come you have greed or desire. Okay, desire, greed. All right. Okay. So, all right. So the deeper meaning of yu is to lack the Buddha nature as the master. So the lack of Buddha nature wisdom, where the valley represents the valley spirit, which is a metaphor for the Buddha nature essence. So by lacking the valley spirit, it's to lack the Buddha nature wisdom, which results in having desires. Okay. All right. The deeper understanding is the craving, the mind of craving, say desires, right? Longing, starts with thinking of having just a bit more is fine. Not much more, just a little bit more would be fine. See, it all starts out that way, just a little bit more, right? A little bit more. I don't want too much. I just want a little bit more. But here's the problem. That's when you get the ball rolling. All right. That's when, okay. So a little bit more, and then later a little bit more, then a little bit more. So you're never satisfied. So that's when it snowballs, and that's where that little bit more, that thought of just a little bit more will escalate or scale up into craving, greed, desires and greed. Okay, so here it is. But this little bit more is a craving. Okay, we don't realize it, right? We don't say, "Oh, I'm not greedy. I just want a little bit more, just a little bit more." All right, okay, a little bit. I'm not greedy. I don't want everything. I just want a little bit more. Okay, the problem is that's the beginnings of a craving. That's the seed, you can say, of greed or desires. We will not be satisfied with that little bit. So this little bit more will keep increasing, and that's when it snowballs, right? Okay, all right. So the implication is the mind of desire is very strong. It is, right? So we become attached, obsessed, addicted, you can say, right? Okay. So in order for the greed to disappear, then you need to eliminate the mind of desire, right? So that's the mind of craving, desires. In order for greed to disappear, right? So if you have no desires, right? Now, okay, I'll get into that a little bit later too. But if you don't have desires, your chances of greed or craving is very little. Okay, so we need to start by not thinking about having just a little bit more is fine. So that's dangerous, right? So that's the key. As long as you don't desire or don't think about saying, "Oh, I just need a little more." If you just think that's enough, okay, then or know where to stop, right? That's from the previous chapter too, right? I think chapter 44. Sorry, 44, right? Okay, nowhere. The word is contentment, and that's in the chapter title anyway. Okay, so the key is contentment. So what is not a let's see, by not thinking about having just a little bit more, it's fine. That's contentment, satisfaction, to be satisfied, to be satiated. Okay, so if you could change, transform that mindset of constantly thinking about, just a little bit more, just a little bit more, if you could transform that type of thought or thinking into, I'm satisfied. Okay, I have enough. Okay, that's the key. It's not easy, I agree, but that's the key. Okay, that's the key then to getting rid of the minor desire and greed. Okay, all right. So the key is to eliminate the minor desire is to have contentment. That's the key. Okay, so we need to transform this craving into contentment by not thinking about just having a little bit more is fine, and understand that it will lead to greed. So we need to regard what we already have as sufficient, and there's no need to pursue more. This is to know contentment. So it's not easy, I agree, but we have to change our mindset. Now, okay, here. The next section. Yeah, okay, here. All right. Okay, so the next line, next phrase of second section is, there's no disaster greater than discontentment. So the first statement he was talking about, okay, greed. Okay, so there's no crime. Now it's a disaster about not having about being discontent. That means not enough, still not enough. Okay, so 知足 means contentment, satisfaction. Okay, all right. So 不知足 means not knowing that you have enough or discontentment. So the greatest misfortune is discontentment, not knowing that you have enough. So now at a moderate level, okay, moderate, that means, in moderation, not extreme, right? Not over. Discontent can be a positive force that motivates you to explore options and maximize your potential, to improve more and further your God. All right. So it can be. I mean, if you're not that satisfied, you're not satisfied with what you've achieved, okay, or what you've attained at that level, okay. So you're saying, hey, I want to achieve more. That's fine. Okay, that's okay. That can be a motivational force. Okay, that's fine. On the other hand, though, the danger is that there's negative side, is that this content is often pushed beyond moderation, from motivation to constant craving. So that's a danger, right? So from moderation of motivation to become craving. That means you become overly obsessed or attached, right? Okay. So when you are in the state of constant craving, there's no peace of mind. So discontentment drives you to pursue fame and fortune, right? That's the vicious cycle, right? Okay. All right. So to know that you have enough, or to know when to stop craving, requires wisdom. Okay. This is a story of Yan Hui. Okay, let's see, Yan Hui. Now, this is also Appendix D. Let's go to Appendix B. That's also from Zhuangzi. Okay, all right. Oops. Okay. Okay. Here. All right. So Confucius. Okay, it's also from Zhuangzi, miscellaneous chapters, okay, on contentment. Now, this is a story. I don't want to go too I'm just going to give you the very broad gist and outline. Okay, so as you know, Confucius had many disciples, right? And you got to remember the background, the time frame that they were in, right? Like I said before, it was during the late spring and autumn period. When there are a lot of competing kingdoms, because this is the breakup from that Zhou dynasty, right? Okay, so there were at least a dozen or so kingdoms during Confucius' time. Later, they consolidated into, I don't know, 6 or 7. By the time it turned to Mencius' time, which is roughly 100-something years after Confucius, it's only like 4. I have several. It's like less than 7. I think 3 or 5 left. Okay, all right. Okay, but during Confucius' time, it was very chaotic, all these countries. So what Confucius tried to do was, he was hoping that, he was still trying to maintain the teachings of the Tao alive, ongoing, right, relevant. But a lot of the kings, the different kingdoms ignored him or didn't want to follow his teachings. Okay, so he continued to teach the principles of Tao to his disciples. And then he also encouraged his disciples to try to not preach, but to try to advise, or work for these kings in these very kingdoms to help them to, teach them the message of the Tao, and try to get them to, change their ways or adopt, the ideals of the Tao that Confucius taught, right? Okay, so many of Confucius' disciples, were at some point or another were either, officials or ministers or advisors to the different kings, during that period. Okay, so example would be Zilu, Zigong, others. Okay, others. Now, of all his disciples, only one did not. Well, not one. There are others, but one of his chief disciples did not do that. Okay, so Confucius was just wondering, why, why. So he asked. It was Yan Hui. So he asked. He talked to Yan Hui. So he asked Yan Hui, why don't you go out and try to work, as a court official or an advisor to the different kings and the kingdoms, like the other disciples are doing, because after all, you come from a very, poor background, unlike some of his other disciples, like Zilu or Zigong, who came from relatively, you say wealthy, well-to-do families, okay? Whereas, Yan Hui, is very poor, comes from a poor family, poor background. So he asked Yan Hui, why don't you go do that, to at least, then you could, teach the principles of Tao to the, to the kings and the courts, and yet at the same time, you could, earn a pretty decent living. Now, what's Yan Hui's answer? Yan Hui is a very, you can say he's a very wise person. Okay, anyway, so he said, "Oh, no, master. I have no need to pursue those things because outside the city, I have a little plot of land where I can grow, grain and crops. That's sufficient to feed me." Okay. Well, he says to make, rice porridge and stuff. That's the actual wording. But the story's not. And also, I have another plot land with it. I can what is it? Grow some. I can plant some. I think that the technical term he used is to grow some crop to make silk, or to make cloth or whatever. Okay, flax or whatever that I can sell. And at least make ends meet, right? It's not a lot, but enough to get by. Plus, and then besides those, that I also have a what we call a musical instrument. Yang Hui also knows how to play musical instrument apparently. A lute, Lute. You guys know what a lute is? It's like well, the closest equivalent I could think of is like today's modern day guitar, but it's like a smaller than a guitar. Okay, and I think it's 4 strings, so it's like a bass guitar or whatever. Okay, well, you could have 6 string, but usually it's 4 string. Okay, anyway, he says, so in terms of finding pleasure, if he has some free time, right, he finds that playing his lute gives him enough pleasure. He doesn't need any other form of entertainment. And then that's okay. So that's the physical aspect. So that's what Yang Hui said to Confucius. But internally, on the spiritual side, he said, "Master, your teachings, your doctrines, which he studies, is sufficient for him to enjoy, to take pleasure." Okay, so given all that, he has enough to satisfy his physical needs, externally, enough to eat, to wear, to live by, and he can play music on his lute, and he enjoyed, learning and following the principles, the doctrines of Confucius. He's happy, he's satisfied. He doesn't need anything more. So Yang Hui, responded to Confucius. That's why he did not wish to take any office, among the kings or the courts. Okay, so Confucius was very, surprised, astonished, you can say, by Yang Hui's response. So he said, "Wow, how 善哉." He says, 善哉. 善哉 means how excellent, how wonderful is Yang Hui's mind, or response. So then he said this. So that's why Confucius then said this. Okay, he said, "Those who know contentment will not exhaust themselves by pursuing greed." This is what Confucius said. All right, and he also said, "Those who are self-sufficient will not fear the loss of material things, and those who cultivate internally will not feel the shame for the lack of position, or the status, right? To seeking or pursuing fame, fortune, and power, right? Okay, so that's what Confucius said. Okay, about so what it means is that why would those who are content, that is self-sufficient, like Yang Hui, do not fear the loss of material? Because by following the Tao, they understand that what they lose, they still are able to regain. All right, so it's not permanent, right? These are just temporary conditions. And also, so this is the type of spiritual strength that comes from Tao cultivation. So that's why it's no wonder that Yang Hui, amongst all the 3,000 or how many thousand disciples of Confucius, he stood out as the one who, you can say, had the highest level of achievement of Tao cultivation amongst all his disciples. Okay, because so you can say this is the wisdom that Yang Hui had. Okay, so So that's why Yang Hui was content, satisfied, even though he was poor. Yeah, I mean, yeah, even though he had no fame, no position, no status. Okay, but that's okay. Because those are not from Yang Hui's perspective. Those are not the important things. Okay, matters. All right. So that's wisdom. Okay. So you guys can read up on that story. It's very good. All right. Okay. Where are we? Okay, here. All right. Okay. All right. So that's Yang Hui. Okay. So the higher understanding is there is no disaster, okay, greater than discontentment, because it will lead to desires, which in turn leads to cravings that turn into greed. Okay. So if you lack the wisdom to know contentment, then discontentment will lead to cravings, then desires, and finally greed, which is the greatest disaster. So attachment to objects comes from greed, which it comes from desires and excessive craving, all of which causes vexations and turmoil in your life. Okay, so that's the eternal. So the key point is part of having wisdom, part of having the wisdom to know that you have enough, is to realize what is truly worthy of pursuing in life. Like Yang Hui understood that, right? So you need to understand that at your last breath, you cannot take with you any material things. You can't take it. All right. Look at the pharaohs of Egypt. They can't take all those, I don't know, gold treasures they had buried in the pyramids with them. It got stolen by the tomb robbers. But anyway, okay, so you still can't take it. So that you devoted so much effort to pursue the external success. So you need to realize what is really worth pursuing in your daily life, to realize that delusional desires and cravings can never be satisfied. Okay, it's a bottomless pit. We talked about that partly in chapter 43, right? Know where to stop, right? That the excessive love, craving, must lead to great spending, or excessive hoarding must lead to heavy or severe loss. Okay, all right, so that's chapter 44. Okay, knowing where to stop. All right. Now, the last phrase of section 2 is no fault, okay, is greater than avarice or greed. Avarice means greed too, all right? Okay, it's little in the Chinese, it means to possess, to obtain what one desires, okay? So the basic meaning is, like the previous two phrases, this phrase is linked to both greatest crime and greatest disaster, okay? So that's a fault, okay? So avarice or greed is the biggest fault because it leads to the attachment to and obsession with material objects, and the never-ending craving that can never be satisfied. Okay, so additional understanding is avarice, greed, okay, can never be satisfied because the cravings that caused it will never cease due to your attachment to material objects. Okay, so the biggest fault is our thoughts on gaining or on obtaining things. Okay, so in the end, in this phenomenal world, there is gain and loss. So to have thoughts of having can also mean losing them as well. Okay, so right, because there's positive and negative, right? Remember chapter 30, yeah, chapter 30, sorry, chapter 30, chapter 39, chapter 39, we talk about attaining oneness, or when, not 39, sorry. I think it's chapter 41, right? It's just chapter 42 about what all things appear to take loss but benefit. Remember the story of the old frontiersman losing his horse. This is chapter 43, losing his favorite horse, right? So what appears to be a loss could be a benefit, but what appears to be a benefit could also be a loss. Okay, so nothing is permanent in this world. So the cravings for things will also lead to losing things. This will lead to a never-ending cycle of more cravings and more greed. Okay, so avarice is a never-ending cycle of more and more cravings and losses. So avarice is the greatest fault. So remember, greed is the first of three poisons. Okay, Okay, so in our daily living, we could all experience the intense feelings of that mind of avarice or greed. So long as we can weaken that strong sense of greed, then we can avoid or minimize all the faults. Okay, now comes the conclusion. My time is almost up. Okay, so thus the satisfaction. This is kind of like a what do you call that? What's that term? Tautology. Okay, so thus the satisfaction of contentment is the lasting or constant satisfaction or contentment. Okay, it's like a tautology. Okay, so basic meaning is to know contentment is satisfaction because the opposite of contentment is discontentment, drives you to pursue fame and fortune, which is a bottomless pit since you will never be satisfied, right? Okay, so right? So on the other hand, knowing contentment does not mean having no ambitions. Okay, remember the story of Yang Hui, right? Not pursuing. Yeah, just because you're content doesn't mean that you have no ambitions. Okay, either. So we have to understand, separate the two. Okay, so Confucius and his disciples that did seek positions of authority were Tao-centric, even though they had ambitions, right, to seek positions, but it is based on the Tao. They did so because their goals and aspirations were Tao-centric. That means were Tao-like. They're still following the Tao principles. So out of a sense of what? Selfless duty to help the rulers govern their kingdoms more justly and wisely, not just for the pursuit of personal fame, fortune, or power. So that's what the Tao-centric means, right? That, you know, a lot of Confucius disciples, went ahead and became, ministers, advisors to the kings, but they did so not because they were seeking or pursuing personal fame, fortune, but rather for selfless duty to help the rulers to govern their kingdoms more wisely and justly. All right. Okay. So that's more Tao-centric. So that's okay. All right. So it doesn't mean that they have, okay. So the only requirement for Tao cultivators of any Tao-centric goals and aspirations is that they must not be ego-driven. This is ultra important. Okay. Ultra. This is the key. Okay. So that's the requirement for Tao cultivators. If you want to pursue any goal, when we're cultivating the Tao, it must not be ego-driven. Okay, you must not have the I. They must not be pursued for the sake of bettering only the self. For non-Tao cultivators, this could mean just living a simple life, which could bring it alive. Okay, so one is for the Tao cultivators, that you must not, in whatever our goals are or our aspirations or whatever, okay, must not be based on the self. Now, for people who are who are not Tao cultivators, okay, they may not understand this level, they may not reach that level of non-self, but they could at least live a very simple life. That's okay. That's okay. All right. So that's all right. Okay. 常, right? 常主, okay. Tang means eternal constant. Okay, so basic meaning of second phrase is, since the Tao is eternal, we can tell if something is in accordance with the Tao by observing if it lasts. Yeah, if it lasts. If it doesn't last, then we know it's not the same as the Tao, right? Okay, so another meaning of second phrase, when we have characteristics that are congruent or the same as, or that is in accordance with the Tao, they take on the eternal aspect of the Tao, so they last. Okay, additional so if the temporary satisfaction of acquiring a material thing fades not long after the acquisition, then it is not in accordance with the Tao, right? So how many times, right, we're so eager, so anticipating about getting something, or either buying something, getting something, whatever, okay, then we got it. Now, the question is, how long does that euphoria or that joy or satisfaction last? So if it doesn't last forever, then it's not in accordance with the Tao, all right? See, so as Yan Hui understood this point, okay? He understood this. He understood that if you, gain a position, at the court or the king, so you gain you can say fame, status, power, even wealth. But he understood that joy or that satisfaction of that attainment, of that gain, doesn't last forever. So he knew that that's not the same as the Tao, right? So for him, just living a simple life, but taking pleasure or deriving pleasure from the teachings or the principles that Confucius taught of the Tao, about the Tao to him, that gave him everlasting satisfaction or lasting satisfaction. So that's why he had contentment, lasting contentment. Okay. All right. So further understanding is, on the other hand, if recognizing that you already have enough brings you lasting satisfaction, then it is very much in accordance with Tao. All right. So deep understanding is the key to lasting satisfaction is to recognize that we already have enough. So how do we come to that recognition? How do we come to see that we already have enough? All it takes to attain that recognition is a slight change of perspective. You can say state of mind, etc. Okay, when you look at the same thing in a different way, you can see it in a brand new light. Okay, now there's a story called Tao Contentment. I don't want to make it too long. Oops, where is it? C. Okay, okay. There's a story. This is a very typical story of this is in Zen. They used to have in Zen Buddhism. Okay, story about a young man who is very discontented, dissatisfied. He's just saying, he's always, excuse me. He's always, longing for either fame, fortune, status already. Fame, fortune, and status, but he can never get it. So he's very, he has a very, not only troubled mind because he never can get what he desired or pursue, but he's also very envious in terms of envious and very disgruntled, very pessimistic young man. Okay. And so one day he came across the sage and he noticed right away that, hey, the sage, he doesn't look, like he's that wealthy, but he seems so happy, with whatever little things that the sage has, the few possessions that he has, and just he's so happy, and so he's wondering why. And then the sage also saw the young man as being very troubled, very just down in the pits. Okay, so the sage asked the young man, "Why are you, are you all right?" And the young man complained, that he's never happy because he can't get what he wants, what he desire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He doesn't have enough money, he doesn't have enough possessions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But then the sage asked him, young man, you actually are more wealthy than you think. Yeah. And then the young man said, how's that? How's that? I don't have wealth like all these guys. I don't have the fame like all these guys. I don't have the power like all these other guys. Then the sage said, no, that's not. Let me ask you, how much would you pay? Sorry. What would you be willing to give up your, let's say, 10 years of your life if, let's say, a wealthy man comes to you and gives you 1,000 gold coins? Would you be willing to give up 10 years of your life? Transfer 10 years of life. So if you are, let's say, going to live to 70, well, would you be willing to live only to 60, give 10 years away to this rich man for 1,000 gold coins? Wouldn't that be worth it? Then the young man thought about it. Well, no. Wait a minute. I don't know. I don't know. 10 years is a lot, and I don't know what I could do in 10 more years. No. So it's not worth it. I don't want to give up, 10 years of my life for 1,000 coins. Then the sage asked me, well, no, okay, suppose not 10 years. How about this? How about if a rich man who has a lot of disease or sickness, okay, he comes to you and says, hey, young man, you're a healthy person. Why can't let me buy your health. I want your health. Okay. I'll give you 5,000 gold coins for your wealth. Would you be willing to give it up to this sick rich person? Okay. And the young man thought about it, says, health. Hey, yeah, right now I'm healthy. I can walk, I can talk, I can run, no problem. But hey, you know what? To give all that up, I don't know. It's not worth it. So no. I probably won't. Okay. Then the sage said, well, how about this? Suppose another rich man came to you and he's very old. He's about to die. Okay. But he'll ask you, young man, how about this, young man? Since you complain that you don't have enough, how about if I give you 10,000 gold coins for your life? Give it to me so that this old dying rich man can live a few more years. Transfer your life to him. And the young man said, are you kidding? My life is worth more than 10,000 gold coins, man. No. I'm not going to do that. Then the sage said, see, young man, I see that you at least are worth 16,000 gold coins, right? 1,000 for your 10 years, 5,000, 16, 5,000 for your health, and 10,000 for your. So, at least you're worth 16,000 gold coins. See, so this is the view, right? So yes, even though physically or materially, maybe even mentally, okay, that we feel we don't have enough. But here's the problem. We tend to be very narrow-minded, only think about what we don't have, what we do not have. We don't understand or realize, say, hey, but we have something else. We do have something. Okay, we do have your health, your life, your years ahead of you. Okay, so the sage pointed out that this young man already had health, life, years ahead of him, and these are all the basic things that we all possess. Thus, we too have at least 16,000 gold coins, according to the sage. Okay, now remember, at least I think during Dharma class or visitations, holy teacher would ask people, okay, you think you're poor. You think poor. How about this? I give you 10,000 gold coins for your left arm. Would you be willing to give away your left arm? Most people say, no, right? How about your right arm? I give you 20,000 gold coins for your right arm. Would you be willing to give it? No. So teacher's saying, holy teacher would tell us, see, you don't realize it, but you're worth at least 30,000 gold coins or whatever amount that is. Okay. You just don't know. See, you don't know that you possess it already. You possess good health. That's probably priceless. Okay. Never mind your life, right? That's priceless, or 10 years or whatever. Okay. So when we look at it this way, so it's that little slight change in perspective, we will realize that we possess much more than just our health. You're still ahead of us, etc. We have more than that. So we possess a lot more wealth than we realize. Okay, there are many other chapters, okay, that refer to this concept of contentment. So I'll just summarize briefly here. I mean, I think these are the main ones. I mean, there may be others, but I think the only one. So chapter 23, we talked about it. Okay, those who know contentment are healthy. Chapter 44, when to stop. Knowing contentment avoids disgrace. And then this chapter, okay, we have no disaster greater than this contentment. And then the last phrase is the satisfaction of contentment is the lasting satisfaction. Okay, so this is a very important concept. So we just have to frame it correctly. Don't focus only on what we don't have, right? We tend to focus on that because we look at the other people, right? What's it? The grass is greener on the other, other person's yard, a neighbor's yard, or keeping up the Joneses. We tend to only focus on what we don't have, but we should also change our thing and say, hey, you know what? I have health. I have happy family. I have a loving family, good friends, good friendship. That's worth something. That's got to be something. All right. So that's okay. So that's among other things. Okay. I mean, the highest levels I have to Tao, but I'll get to that later. Okay. But anyway, all right. Okay. So where are we? Okay. Ooh, shoot, this is longer than I expected. Okay. Oh, we're almost there. All right. Okay. Where are we? All right. Okay. So the higher understanding is that lasting satisfaction is a state of constant happiness with everything that you can use as a foundation for improving your life, not something that you can use as an excuse to do nothing. Okay, so that's important. All right, it's a mindset. Okay, we got to understand that. Okay, so the implication is, as long as we're living very much according to our wishes in the midst of our lives, or not doing that, and we are not lacking for health, not lacking for food or basic necessities of life, then it is like in paradise. There are times when we are really fortunate, but don't know it. Just like that young man, okay? That is how we recognize that we already have enough. Okay, so summary, here it is. Here's the summary: how to transform discontentment to constant contentment. Okay, how to transform. Okay, so we need to realize that you possess treasures in addition to your health, your years, and your life. Okay, we already possess things, not what we don't possess. Okay, don't look at it that way. Okay, so first is family, right? Okay, now the family is not just the family you were born into. Okay, not limited to your own, you know, from your own family of flesh and blood, not that, but new families that you have the opportunity to create, or to create, to establish, that you're not, that are yet to be formed and built. Example, I mean, one example: the family of Tao cultivators, or the family of that temple, etc., etc. Okay, right? Okay, right. Then friendship, not just the friends that you already have, okay, but new friendships waiting for your discovery in the future. So that's something that's value, that has value or worth. Okay, so, and now that's external, family, friendship, that's all external. But then internally, in the mind, not just what you already know, but all the new concepts or understanding you will explore: the appreciation, gratitude, respect, trust, values, opportunity to study and cultivate the Tao. Okay, so that's something worth something. That's wealth. Okay, that's wealth. Okay, because some people don't have this opportunity. That's sad. They may have everything else. They may have all the money in the world, all the fame in the world, all the power, but they don't. They lack this. So that's sad too. Okay. Lastly, this is the most important. Okay, the Tao. Okay, being appreciative and grateful that you know about the Tao when many people still do not. You have the opportunity and affinity to study and cultivate the Tao, while many people have neither the opportunity nor the affinity. So this is actually the most precious, the wealth, the greatest wealth, right? Okay. So why? Because having this, okay, it gives you the opportunity to what? Become a Buddha, right? So that's the greatest. Okay, all right. So that's how we have to change our mindset. All right. Okay, I'm almost done. Sorry, it took a while, but anyway. Okay, so here's the key. Here's the conclusion. Okay, so to know that as long as we have health, enough to eat and wear, and have the basic necessities for living a comfortable life, is to realize that we are not lacking in our daily living. That is to know that we are very fortunate. That is the constant state of joy in knowing we have everything we need. That is to have the Tao in our daily living. When the Tao, remember, is in the world, that's what this means. Okay, that is the satisfaction of knowing contentment. That is the constant or lasting contentment or satisfaction. I'm sorry it took a little bit longer than usual. Okay, that concludes this class. I'd like to ask for the Buddha, saints, and Lao Tzu's forgiveness, correction if I said something that's not correct, and I ask for your guidance. Okay, thank you.